This is Peter Anderson from BibleMoneyMatters.com. And now, your host, Eric Rosenberg. He'll balance your checkbook, he'll tell you where to invest, and he'll even DJ your wedding. This is the Personal Profitability Podcast.
You're listening to the Personal Profitability Podcast, where you'll learn how to earn income, live better, and put your money to work for you. Here's your guide on your path to personal profitability, Eric Rosenberg.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Personal Profitability Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here with me for, I think this episode makes it a dozen, not quite a baker's dozen yet, but I'm so excited again, as always, to have you back. My name is Eric Rosenberg, your trusty and very good-looking host, and today I have a special guest for you, someone who you might guess where I met them, like some other guests. I met him at FinCon, but this guest I met a little differently than the others. We didn't meet at a networking session. We actually met at a bar at about 3 a.m, one night in New Orleans at the last FinCon. And it was because my wife was up at the bar grabbing us another round of drinks and saw this bald guy with a FinCon badge on. It's like, oh, you look like you're at the same conference I'm at, and we've been buddies since. So I'm very excited to introduce Lee Huffman, who is here with us. So say hello.
Hi, Eric. It's great to be here, and it's great to be here with all your listeners.
So a little background on Lee before we dive in. He is a banker by trade. That is his full-time day job. He lives in the Southern California area. He's an executive at the bank he works at. It's a regional bank. And he got into the FinCon world because he has a site called Bald Finances. You might guess the name comes a little bit from his hairstyle. He has other sites as well, baldthoughts.com and several others that we'll talk about as we go. But before we get started, as always, personal finance should be fun, so we're going to have a beer. If you are not in the car and not at a job that would prevent that, please, this is your moment to hit pause, head to the fridge, grab a beer. If you're gluten-free, you could grab a wine. I guess you'd have a scotch too. Those are pretty good. I don't judge. So here's your pause moment. Okay, welcome back. I hope you got something good and cold. I here have a Hopworks IPA. I actually live just a few blocks from the Hopworks brewery here in Portland. It's an all organic brewery. We call it Hub. It's a good place to ride your bike and grab a beer. What do you have on your end, Lee?
I'm actually drinking a Heineken. When growing up, I really didn't like that taste too much, but after going to Germany and picking up an S550 and driving around Europe, we actually stopped off at the Heineken factory, and I have a new affection for Heineken after seeing how they're made.
I've actually been, a few years ago, one of my first travel hacks ever, I flew out on a trip to London, Paris, and Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam, I went to the old Heineken factory tour in the city center, and it was a really great time. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, they put a lot of effort into that tour, and it's really awesome to go visit for yourself.
And my favorite part, listeners, if you ever get there, there's a ride that you can do in the tour where you are the ingredients being made into a beer. And it's a fully interactive experience as much as they can do without boiling you. So it was really neat. And I always think of, when I think of Heineken, I think of like Las Vegas nightclubs and European nightclubs, because whenever I go out to a nightclub with European music, I wear European clothes and feel like I should drink European drinks. So that's what I always get when I'm at a boom, ba-doom, boom, boom kind of nightclub. I'm almost a Heineken guy, so good choice. Anyway, so we're gonna dive into the meat now. So Lee is one of the foremost experts on travel hacking that I know, and as you guys who've listened before know, I've done a very in-depth post on travel hacking. So we're going to end up there and talk a little bit about travel hacking. But to start, Lee, can you share a bit about your career background, how you ended up in banking, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Even though I work for a bank, I mean, I've never really considered myself a quote unquote banker. I'm more of like a business person that's always looking to find better ways of doing whatever's being done and trying to find ways to drop drop income down to the bottom line, whether it's saving money or increasing revenue. So I think it kind of fits in the overall perspective of what we're doing here on the websites, as well as what I'm doing with my career. I actually started working for my dad's law firm when I was 14 years old doing accounting. So that's another exciting career on the accounting side there. But
did you decide after a high school career in accounting to not do that for your adult career? Yeah.
I actually took a couple accounting classes in high school, and I did so well in the first class that I took it again the second time, and well, it was the advanced course the second time, but I did so well that the teacher never even bothered me, and I basically would sleep in class. And I was almost like a tutor for everybody else. They would wake me up and ask me a question. I'd show them how to do whatever T transaction they're trying to do and balancing the debits and credits. And then I go back to sleep. And because I basically had almost 100% score in the class all the time, that the teacher never even bothered me. So that was pretty awesome. But during college, I took a information services class. Or information systems class, and I learned Excel for the first time. And this is obviously way back in the day, probably in 1994, when computers weren't as prevalent as they are today. Mm-hmm. And my dad was a bankruptcy attorney, and he was working on a case for a client and had some documents that were due at the courthouse on Monday. And wouldn't you know it, the people that worked at the company that he was representing, they went home. It was 5 o'clock. They said, see you later. I'm out of here. And, he was kind of freaking out because he needed some documents done. And so I'm like, I just took this accounting. I just took a couple accounting classes and an Excel class. I can probably do whatever you need done. And I basically replicated the format to basically show how clients needed to repay their debts over the course of a 5-year period. In the bankruptcy world, it's known as a plan to reorganization and a disclosure statement. And so I basically spent the weekend doing that. And that was kind of like my first business was born. I started working with my dad's bankruptcy clients. And then I ended up going out and getting a bunch of clients on my own as well. And that whole process evolved into doing business plans for companies looking for debt and equity funding. And it was really interesting times. The dot-com crash. I mean, the dot-com crash hadn't happened. So everybody with a wild hair up their booty was coming up with all these crazy schemes and ideas of how to make money off of nothing. And things were pretty good for a little while. And then obviously the dot-com crash happened, and that business dried up considerably. So my partner and I, we split up. He went to go work for the family business, and I went to go work in the financial planning world, because I've always been interested in investments, and I've always been trying to steer my friends towards spending less and investing more. So I figured, okay, well, I'm already talking about it to my friends all the time. I might as well get paid for it, right? Mm-hmm. And I did that for probably about a year. And I realized that I was working more hours for that company and making less money than I was when I was working for myself. And, I grew tired of putting in all those hours and not really seeing much out of it. The financial services industry, basically you need to have like another spouse that's working with you, or you need to have a pretty good amount of savings in order for you to build up your business and really be able to make a good income out of it. You really need to be in it for, I'd say, 3 to 5 years in order to really make a substantial income. So there are a lot of washouts like me and a bunch of other people that started there. We just lasted for, a year or a lot of them even less than that. So my friend basically recommended that I go work for a bank. I never really even thought about that, and said, okay, let me give it a try. And I became a personal banker, where I was able to bring a lot of my clients over and still be able to provide all the investment services, but at the same time offer a more well-rounded, financial plan for them by being able to help them with loans, say if they need a mortgage or home equity line of credit or a credit card, as well as their banking needs, like a checking account, savings, etc. So I looked at it as like a way to evolve and be able to offer better services for my clients that I brought over.
So then how did you go from personal banker to the position you're in today? Did you just kick a lot of butt and impress them? And like, oh, we're gonna give you a fancier title.
Yeah. Well, what I did is I started working in a branch was not for me. I just didn't want to be in that situation, day in and day out. And so I said, okay, what are the two things that make banks the most amount of money? And it's the investment side and it's the business banking side. And because business banking is generally larger transactions, larger balances.
All those fees. Lots of fees.
A lot of fees.
If you've never opened up a business checking account before and you've only ever done personal accounts, when you start, if I talk a lot about freelancing, starting a freelance business or a side business, it was a wake-up call for a lot of my friends. Like, whoa, you have to pay all these fees to have a business account, even though I do the exact same stuff as a personal account.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy how that works. But generally, so what I did is I focused on the business side, and I did really well. I was actually, at the time I was working for Citibank, and I was the number 2 business banking officer in the West Coast. And unfortunately, there wasn't a career path available for me there. And so I went to Bank of America and was basically doing the similar type of thing, working with clients that are in the $2 to $20 million in revenue size. And they had balances that are $100,000 or more. And I think it just really at that point, I was kind of burnt out on the sales side. And so I wasn't putting all my effort in. And just some other things that happened there. I had an assistant, and it's kind of like a revolving door with the number of people that were kind of helping me out, and things just didn't work out. And I was only there for a little bit over a year. And at that time, the economy was improving, and I really wanted to get more on the strategic side of banking. And so, I was fielding calls all the time because whenever you're in the sales side, recruiters call you constantly because they're always looking for good salespeople. And every time I get a phone call, oh man, another bank? I really don't, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. And I almost didn't return the phone call to the company I'm working for today. I was like, it's another bank. It's another sales job, I'm sure. And I was like, you know what? If you don't try, you never know. You're never going to know. You're always going to question. And so I returned the phone call and I gave them a call and started talking to me, and they started describing the position that I'm in. It's like, wow, this is fantastic. They have all these different, fancy titles for things, et cetera. But effectively, I'm like a divisional CFO. So I manage all the finances for the areas of the bank that I manage. And so, I'm basically like the liaison between the line of business I support and the CFO and the finance team. And I've been doing it now for the last 10 years. I've supported almost every area across the bank. And it's been really fun being at a bank that's the size that we are, on a mid-size versus say like a conglomerate like Chase or Wells or Bank of America, because I can do things that actually matter and that actually impact the performance of the bank. If I was over at Chase or something like that at the position I'm in, or even on the sales side where I was before, if you did like say 300 times your goals, which would be just fantastic, right? It just wouldn't even be a blip on the radar. I mean, they're just so big.
Drop in the bucket.
Yeah. And so I'm interacting on a daily basis with the executive I support. I'm one step away from the CFO, those types of things. So I think money's nice, but I think just kind of like the personal fulfillment of knowing that you're making a difference really kind of hit home for me. And that's why I've been there for the last 10 years.
Oh, that's great. I can definitely feel that you like to make a difference with your job. I've had actually my first job out of school was at a bank, and it lasted only about 6 months. I was on the retail branch side, and that was it was definitely not for me. It was more the hours. It was the culture. It wasn't the bank. I actually really enjoyed the banking part, working with clients, helping them with all their needs. That was my favorite part of it, which is what led to me starting my first finance blog was that experience. So the personal finance part I loved, but the 7 to 7 was not fun.
Oh, wow. I mean, you got lucky with the 7 to 7. I would have actually enjoyed those hours because I think, I just needed more hours to be able to get everything done when I first started in banking. The bank I was working at, CalFed, which has now been bought by Citibank a long time ago. When I was started there, I needed more hours to call a lot of my clients, to be able to do a lot of things, to be able to help transition them over to the bank. And they made a big deal. Okay, we're going to do a calling night this one, on Tuesday. So okay, great. Let's do it. And it was 5:45. They're like, okay, everybody wrap it up. The bank closed at 5, and so we spent about 45 minutes phone calling. I'm like, what do you mean? I was used to calling until like 9 o'clock at night when I was working for the financial planning company. And they're like, nope, sorry, we only have a limited amount of overtime, and 45 minutes. That's about all we can offer you.
Oh,
go,
yeah.
Okay. And so I went out into the parking lot to my car, And between working for the financial planning company and working for myself all those years and working for my dad, I'd never had normal hours. I never had a 40-hour work week. And so I literally sat in the car and I didn't know what to do. I was sitting there.
Did you go home?
I didn't know where to go. I was sitting there. I'm like, okay, I have options. I have things I could do. I just don't know what to do.
It was still happy hour at 5:45.
Yeah.
You had 15 more minutes to get a half price beer.
Exactly. But I know it was just an odd experience. And for people like us that are used to working a lot of hours, whether it's for yourself or for the man, when you're let out of the office at 5 o'clock and you're just kind of not knowing what to do, it's an odd experience. And I eventually figured out things to do, obviously, but it was a tough transition for me at first.
Yeah, I could see that going. It's a big transition, I think, going either way from being self-employed to having an employer. I'd say it's probably a bigger culture shock.
Sure.
But the other way too, if you've had the regular hours and then all of a sudden you're out on your own doing something, either way you have to totally revamp your whole work lifestyle and how you do things. It's a major shock. So
yeah,
but it sounds like you landed on your feet and you've done really well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Now I actually have a problem where I have too many things to do and not enough hours in the day. So I only sleep probably about 5 to 6 hours a night.
I wish I could get by on that. And I actually have a pregnant wife right now, so she's more tired than usual. But we were generally an 8 to 9 hour a night sleep household. And
oh God.
I need that to function at full steam. I need my 8 hours. If I sleep less than 7 multiple nights in a row, I start to fade out. By the end of every FinCon, I'm running ragged, and I usually come home sick. It's a bummer. Actually, every big trip I've taken to Europe, I've come home with a nasty cold. It's no fun.
Well, first of all, congratulations to you and your wife. We just had a baby ourselves, and I know what you're going to be going through. And,
I don't know yet. I'm going to find out in about 6 months.
Well, the good thing for your wife's energy level, the first trimester is like, obviously you got all the baby making going on down in her tummy. And, it really does sap the energy for the first, say like probably half the pregnancy. And then things start to ease down. And then the last couple months before the due date, the nesting phase will set in. And she's going to have so much energy because she's going to be a motivated mommy to make sure that the bedroom is all set up for the baby and like everything's all set and done. So that way she doesn't have to worry about anything when she comes home from the hospital. So prepare yourself. It's going to be a 180-degree difference from where she is today.
Well, right now the baby room is set up as a photography and video studio that I'm using for recording things for the website. So I'm about to lose my awesome space to the baby, but I think that's a worthwhile trade.
Yeah, that's a good trade.
So just a couple minutes ago, you were mentioning how you have all of this, all these other projects to work on when you get home from work, and it's impeding on your sleep schedule. How did you get started with your own projects on top of your day job?
Well, I think the main thing is I've always tried to say, I want multiple streams of income. I want to figure out ways so I can try to retire early. And so when I sold my house back in 2006 to be able to buy a house for my parents where they can kind of semi-retire, living in California, house prices were really inflated, and we were lucky actually to sell the property when we did. And it wasn't because I knew that house prices were going to fall. It was really more of my dad's health was starting to deteriorate. And so I said, hey, let's sell the house and move you to North Carolina where my brother lives. And so we were able to sell it at a really good time, bought a house for them. And then at the same time, I was looking around, and one of the houses that we contemplated buying for them actually was a rental and already had a tenant in it. And so, when I was buying their house, I said, well, you know what? I wonder if I can make it work where I could actually get that house also. And then that was my first rental house back in April of 2006. And so I bought that house. I had my parents' house. My dad actually passed away a little bit over 3 years ago. And then, so like the next phase of that property kind of went in place where we turned that property into another rental. And
so how many rentals have you? Yes, you were telling the story. How many rentals have you had over the years now?
Just those two at that time, and then I bought another one a little bit over a year ago. And you know how it is today. You don't really need a realtor in many times when you're buying a property, because you do all the research yourself online, whether it's Zillow or a Redfin or any of those types of websites or apps on your phone. And I was searching, and somebody gave me a phone call, and they basically said, "Hey, I can help you show houses," and I was like, "Okay, whatever." So I signed up with her and bought my third rental, because I had saved up enough money for a traditional 20-30% down payment on a rental. When you buy a rental, it's not like buying a house just for yourself. Mm-hmm. When you buy a house for yourself, you have FHA loans, you have all these like low down payment programs, or even at the most, like they require you to put a 20% down payment, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to get rid of the mortgage insurance premiums. But when you're buying a rental property, in most cases, they want you to have 30% equity. And so I saved up enough money, bought that house, and I really liked the presentation that the selling agent was doing. He presented the house really well, both online and on paper and things like that. And the house was really fixed up really nice. And so I started talking to him, and my partner that went with me to the Heineken factory, he'd been badgering me for a little while to say, "Hey, let's do some business together. Let's figure things out." And so I said, okay. Things just kind of aligned where I met that real estate agent. My partner was ready to kind of do some investing with me. And we ended up buying our first two flips that started. We closed on them in July of last year. And basically kind of our business was born, so to speak, for doing flips and rentals. And because with that, you can buy a house that's really cheap. The one that we turned into a rental, we bought that one in January. Bought it for $53,000. We put $17,000 into it. It appraised for $100,000, so we forced $30,000 worth of equity, and now it's rented for $850 a month.
That's great. So for any of your fix-ups, have you sold any of them yet to see what you could get on a profit, or are you hanging on to them and doing the cash flow thing?
We kind of do both. We buy some properties that we know that we're going to sell, and then we buy other properties that we know we're going to keep for a rental. Because when you do a flip for a rental or a flip for sale, it's two different types of rehabs that you're looking at doing. If you're doing something that's for sale, you want it to be a lot prettier, mm-hmm. and things like that. If you're doing it to keep it as a rental, you're not going to be quite as flashy, and you're more focused on sturdiness. You want to make sure that it's going to last several tenants or several years, so that way you're not having to constantly do more repairs whenever somebody moves out, or every couple of years that things just wear out after a little bit of wear and tear. So we did sell our first two earlier this year. The first one sold in January, and the second one closed in March. And unfortunately, we didn't make that much money off them. At least we were positive. We made money on both of them.
That's good.
So that's.
Did you get your what was your hourly pay rate for all the work you put in?
Not very much. I would say probably the amount of hours I put in, probably could have worked. I probably could have got paid more working at McDonald's. But a lot of it's as you're familiar, when you're first building up your business, there's a lot of things that I was doing for the project, but there's also a lot of things we're just doing for the general business and strategy of how we're going to make this a long-term business. So I didn't really segment out which hours were which, but my partner and I, we meet once a week for 3 or 4 hours at a time, just talking about strategy and talking about what we're going to do as far as being able to ramp up the business even more. So,
were there any huge lessons learned on those properties that you will take forward into the next one?
Yeah, we're actually almost finished with our second two. I mean, our second set of flip properties. They'll be closed this year in June and be up for sale hopefully before the end of the month. But the main thing is, it's like anything in real estate or any other type of business. You make a lot of your money when you buy in. And we just didn't have enough experience at the time to really know what was the right price to buy those two properties. And you have to be diligent, and you have to take the emotion out of it. And if the numbers don't work, even no matter how much you may love that house, if the numbers don't work, they don't work. This is business. This isn't romance. And looking back on it, we may or may not have actually done one or both of those properties if we had known. if we used the same philosophy we use today that we used back then.
Well, that's good to know. So for your next two, are you thinking, how are things looking? You think you're going to be like those guys on TV making $70,000 a house? Or do you think, what's your gut telling you?
We have a lower threshold, partly because, we're not buying houses that are, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. The houses that we buy are generally in like the $40,000 to $60,000 range.
Where do you find
what was that?
Where do you find a $40,000 to $60,000 house?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. I would say I know you live in Southern California, so I don't know of anything in your part of the country that you can find for $40,000.
No, you wouldn't be able to buy a room in somebody's house for $40,000 out here in Orange County.
You might get a shed in a backyard. Yeah. For $40,000 a year in rent.
Exactly. So we're doing well on those. We actually have 3 properties that we're doing it right now. There's 2 of them that we're doing for flips. We bought them, in the $40,000 to $60,000 range, and they're gonna sell for anywhere from between like $100,000 to $130,000.
Yeah, that's a good return on investment.
You have your rehab costs in there and stuff like that. So, our target is in like the $15,000 to $20,000 range. And, as far as the amount of capital we have to put in, it's actually a pretty good rate of return. So when you factor in the financing from a bank and those types of things. So
is your business partner out there in North Carolina managing the day-to-day?
No, he's actually here in Southern California too. But my brother lives out there, and so if I ever need somebody to go drop in on a property, he's more than willing to do that for me. I just have we've built a really strong team between our insurance agent, our realtor, property manager, attorney, our mortgage broker, contractors, things like that. So I think we have a pretty solid team now, and I think that we're going to do well on the 2 flips that we're doing, and the rental, which would be the second rental that we own together, and the 5th one that I own in total. That one, again, we're buying it, I think like $57,000, something like that. We're putting in probably about $18,000 in rehab, so about $75,000 total, and it's going to be worth about $115,000 when we're done, and it'll rent for about $900 a month. So, really, your goal when you're doing the rentals is between like $100 to $200 a door. So for every door, and they say door because sometimes you're buying like a multifamily housing, like a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, or even something that's bigger than that, like an apartment building. There's a certain per door number that you really want to achieve, and in the market we're in, $100 to $200 a door is pretty favorable. Out here in California, if you're buying something that's $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $100 really doesn't do much for you. No. So you have to obviously scale the numbers based on the market you're participating in.
So if you were going to talk to somebody who is ready to do their first ever flip, what would you tell them are the steps to get started?
The main thing is having a good team that you can trust, because obviously you're going to be putting in a meaningful amount of money into there, even with the bank financing. Like we have financing a lot of times where the bank will finance like 75%. So you're still putting in 25% of the project cost. So you obviously need a good team that you can trust. And most important, like I said earlier, is don't fall in love with the project. The numbers are the numbers. And so if the numbers don't work, then you have to pass, no matter how beautiful the house is.
Have you bought any of those super cheap foreclosures at auction, or have you always gone on the up and up side of houses and looked for houses that were on the market from a regular seller?
Everything we bought so far has been on the MLS. We've actually there's a term called wholesaling, and we've been approached by a couple wholesalers that basically they find people that are looking to sell their property. It's not a realtor is involved. And so they're looking to sell their property, and this person essentially kind of acts as a realtor, but just takes like a flat fee from the buyer. And so a couple of them have approached me. We haven't found anything yet that has been too good of a deal. And so everything so far we bought off the MLS, but we are going to kind of ramp up some more efforts towards buying something directly from somebody, because there's a lot of times people just need help. They're in a bad situation. They want to get out of the house, and for whatever reason, it's just not in a good enough condition where a realtor would really want to touch it. Because, I mean, some of these houses you buy, I mean, like you really don't want to walk in them. You know, they're in such bad shape, and a realtor that's worth his salt isn't going to want to try to market a house that looks like something you see on the episode of Hoarders.
Yeah, but those could be the ones where you get the really big returns too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, because again, we can go in there and fix them up and force the equity, but anybody else can do that too. It just most people don't have the resources or don't want to take on the risk, you know, or they're busy with their life. They're busy with family. They're busy with their job, busy with their kids, and they don't want to take time away from that. And so we provide the service where we find a house that needs some TLC, and we go in there and fix it up and make it a really nice home for somebody to make some great memories. And our kind of our motto is a better community, one home at a time.
Oh, that's great. That's a really nice way to think about it. Not thinking about it as let's see how many dollars I can grab, but at helping the community and making a few bucks as you do it. That's
exactly.
That's an awesome philosophy. I like that.
You want it to be a win-win, you know, for everybody, and
definitely. So, you don't want to be a slumlord. You want to give people.
No.
if you're having a rental property, you want them to have a nice place to live, and
yeah. Well, especially with the rental properties, the philosophy is I'd rather make them just a little bit nicer than I have to, because the last thing you want to have on a rental property is vacancy.
Right.
Because
that's when the killer.
If there's a vacancy, you have all the expenses and none of the income.
Right. And my in-laws have done a lot of real estate. That's been their career. And they actually have an out-of-state multi-unit building that they have. And I know when they got it, they were able to get a better deal on it because it had so many vacancies, and they put in the time and the work and got a great property manager out there. And now it's totally filled up. So it's a story that any real estate investor could hopefully find as a good real estate investor. You find something and increase the vacancy, or decrease the vacancies, increase the value, and you've earned both equity in your property and some cash flow. So
exactly. So I do a lot of the real estate stuff on the side. You know, that obviously that takes up quite a bit of time. Like I said earlier, I had a baby girl that was born in March. And so she's 11 weeks old now, and I have a 4-year-old son. And so it's great being able to spend time with them. But one of the things that I also do is, like you mentioned earlier, is the baldthoughts.com is my website. And it really started out initially as my thoughts on everything, whether it be finance or sports or travel, because I have a lot of different interests that way. But I realized that maybe not everybody wants not everybody wants to hear all the different topics, and so I basically kind of segmented the sites at some point, and that way I have Bald Thoughts as more of my travel. Bald Finance is the personal finance, and then Flight to the Game is focused on sporting events and codes to be able to get pre-sale tickets for different events whenever I can get those. And so, you know, really I've been involved on the travel hacking side for a long time. I thought that I was sitting in tall cotton, having the Southwest Chase Southwest card and the American Express SPG card. And I've had the companion pass for about 9 years. And pretty much the entire time my wife and I have been dating and now married. So we traveled all the time. And it's been fantastic because with the Southwest card, you can easily earn the companion pass.
Yes.
And it's great. Wherever you fly, your companion flies for free. You know, now all you have to do is pay the 9/11 fee. So basically, $5 or $10 a flight.
I think it's $5.50 per leg now is how they do it. And my wife, we have that one too. We actually, for those of you who have not heard of this deal, there's a really cool trick you can do to get all these Southwest miles all at once, which we'll get more into how these bonuses work in a few minutes. But for this specific deal, the way Southwest works, which is different than a lot of the other airlines, the miles that you earn from the credit card, including the bonus, are qualifying miles towards the companion pass or towards the premium status. So if you can earn 110,000 miles within a calendar year, for the entire calendar year you complete. Plus the next year you get a companion pass, and you designate one person. You can't just every flight pick a different friend to go with. You can change it like 2-3 times a year. So you can change it, but that's not how it's really designed. But there are 2 credit cards you can get at the same time, both the personal and the business Southwest card, and each come with a 50,000 mile bonus if you spend $2,000 within, I think, the first 3 months. So right there, if you spend $4,000 within 3 months, you have 104,000 miles. And to get the companion pass, you only need 110,000. They say only, but at that point, it is only because you're 6,000 miles away. And you can do that through credit card spend. And you don't have to spend real dollars to spend those dollars. You can do something that's called manufactured spending. And actually, Lee is an expert in this as well. So rather than me hog the whole conversation, let's dive in. Let's say so. Lee, if you were brand new travel hacker, decided this Southwest deal is the one you want to try to get started. You're like, I'm into this. Sure. I want 110,000 miles. So with Southwest, that is easily 5-6 round trip flights. Plus, you get to bring your companion along. So that's 12 round trip flights. That's real money there. We're talking at $200-$300 a flight. You can do the math. That adds up quick. That would be expensive if you just paid for it. But we don't have to pay for it because we're smart travel hackers. So, Lee, if you were doing this deal and you wanted to figure out how to spend that or let's say the whole $10,000 you have to spend, what would your strategy be to do that?
Well, first off, when you put everything on a credit card, whether it be your utilities, your auto insurance, your home insurance, all these other things, going out to meals, cell phone bills, all those things, realistically, those add up to be a pretty significant number, when you actually put it on a credit card. One of my friends, about a year and a half ago, I got him into doing the travel hacking, and he only wanted to do one card at first because he was really concerned about hitting a minimum spend of about $2,000. And I said, just put all your expenses on there, put everything you spend, your gas for your car, anything you normally spend with cash or your debit card.
That's a big one.
Exactly.
Bar tabs if you're a young partier.
Exactly. Or what you do is you pay for the tab and get all the cash from your friends, and then you take the cash and pay off your card.
I figured that one out early on. I'd go to these dinners with 10 friends, and rather than split the bill, I'd be like, everyone give me money and I'll put it on my card. And all of a sudden that was $500.
Yeah, because most of your friends, if they're not in on the travel hacking or personal finance side, most of them are carrying balances. Right. And so the last thing they want to do is put more money onto their credit card. So that's why they're using cash a lot of times. And so, if you're smart, you're paying off your credit card every month. And so you're like, hey, just give me the cash. You know that you're going to be responsible enough to pay off the balance, and everything works out great because you're getting all the points, not only for your meal, but everybody else's meal. And so it works out pretty fantastic. But realistically, like my friend, he was really concerned about being able to hit that minimum spend. And after about a month, he's like, "Oh my God, I've almost hit the entire minimum spend, and I still have 2 more months to go." I said, "See, that's why I was telling you. Maybe you need to do 2 cards, or even 3." And so, but realistically, it is pretty easy, even without having to do manufacturer spend, to be able to hit the minimum spending on 1 or 2 cards over the course of 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one that I've run into trouble with when I've done a lot of manufactured spending, because I think my record was 4 credit cards in a day. But one card I got was the American Airlines Executive Card. They have at one point 100,000 mile bonus. But if I remember, I think it was $10,000 in 3 months you had to spend. Yeah. And I got one card for myself and one for my wife. So all of a sudden we had to spend $20,000 in 3 months. That one was a little bit trickier. We had to put some legwork in on that.
Yeah, exactly. And when you do multiple cards like that, or you do these cards with these really high minimum spend limits, at that point, then the manufacturer spending really is very beneficial for you. And so, like Eric was talking about, what you do is you go to, like, say, your gas stations. Sometimes we'll have them, grocery stores, things like that, or even the mall. There's a mall near me, the Brea Mall, where they have the gift cards for sale as well. And you go up there with your credit card, You buy the gift cards. Unfortunately, they've been raising the fees because I think that they've been having too many travel hackers buy the gift cards. So it used to be $3.95 and now it's $5.95. So you are spending about a little bit over 1%, of the cost of the card. But if you're doing it towards a big bonus like that, it's definitely worthwhile. So you're spending a little bit of money on the transaction fees. And then what you do is you take your gift cards, and there's a product that's free. It's called the American Express Bluebird account, and you can take your gift cards that you buy that are like the Visa gift cards from a certain company. You take them and you go to Walmart, and you can load the gift cards onto your American Express Bluebird card at the financial counter, and you can do that. I think it's now only $1,000 a day. Sometimes you can do up to like $2,500 in a day.
Actually, just a little tidbit for people who don't have, or if you have a Walmart near you or a neighborhood market, it's another Walmart store. They often have that financial counter that Lee was just mentioning. If they don't, because not all stores do, some have a finance kiosk. That is the easiest place to do the unload onto the Bluebird card because it has all the same functions and features. But you don't have to explain to someone what you're doing, which a lot of people are like, what do you mean you want to put $200 onto this card 5 times? Of that stuff seems kind of funky. So you can do it yourself. If they don't have that, which I've run into, any cashier at a Walmart can do it. They won't all know how, but sometimes they all have the ability at every Walmart register.
Exactly. But the most important thing is don't tell them that you're using a gift card. Tell them it's a debit card, because those gift cards that you buy are effectively a debit card. Mm-hmm. And if you tell them it's a gift card, sometimes, the alarms go off in their head and going, hey, wait a minute, maybe this guy's trying to do something weird.
And by law, all Visa and MasterCard gift cards that they can't just be a store card. You get like an American Eagle card and do this because you can only spend it there. But the MasterCard and Visa debit card gift cards by law have to be PIN numberable. That's not a word. I made it up. They have to be PIN eligible. So you could potentially go to an ATM and type your PIN number, get some cash out, though there's usually fees and sometimes there's locks on that. But because of how the debit card system works, you can use the PIN number just like you would in an ATM or when you use your debit card to buy gas or groceries, whatever you choose to buy, which now you just heard you don't do that. Use the credit card to get the miles, as long as you won't carry a balance and you're responsible, because that totally washes out the value of the free miles if you're spending $50 a month on interest. But you can take those, you use that debit card PIN number. So just like Lee said, you tell them it's a debit card, you swipe it, but you do it in incremental dollars, knowing the balance on the card. So you obviously can't overdraft a card. It would just decline it.
Exactly. And sometimes, like you said, sometimes not everybody has a Walmart nearby. There are certain places like a grocery store or like the small mom and pop liquor stores. They will actually use the gift cards, and you can buy money orders with them.
I've done that. My most recent travel manufactured spend, we did that, and our local chain grocery store let us do that, and it was no problem. They were very nice about it, and doing it with the doing it there, the money order cost I think was $1 per $500. Mm-hmm. So we had to do a couple of them. It cost $2-3 to unload them all, and we were good to go.
Exactly.
That was great. So
I mean, I do when I do the manufacturer spend, because the Bluebird card will only allow you to do a maximum of $5,000 per card. So per month. Sorry. And whenever I do my runs, I show up with $3,000 worth of gift cards. I have 1,000 for my wife, 1,000 for my card, and then 1,000 for a money order. So I hit up all three every time I go. So that way it makes it a little bit more worth my time than just showing up for $1,000.
So can you open a card under your son's and daughter's name? Not credit card, because I've heard of people doing that as fraudulently. Yeah, you can open Bluebird cards for them.
No, the Bluebird card, you have to be 18,
okay,
I believe, to do that. But you can, your aunts, your uncles, your mother-in-law, your parents, any of those types of things. They're obviously easy to do. Obviously, since you're putting your money on that card, don't give them access to it.
Right.
Because obviously some people like to spend your money and you don't want that to happen. But, if they're getting some of the benefits of maybe you're planning a trip and you're going to use your miles to take you and the family. And I've taken my mother-in-law on some trips. If they're going to receive some of the benefits, hey, this is their contribution to helping you be able to get enough miles and points to be able to book that really nice trip.
My friend who first taught me about travel hacking and how it all works, there used to be a trick that Amazon shut it down. That you could use Amazon payments to send $1,000 between two people each way using a credit card for free each month. And he had an Amazon account under his name, his wife's name, his kids' names, both of his parents' names, I think his sister's name, and some of his wife's family. He had like 8, 9, 10 accounts. So, and because you could do $2,000 essentially per pair, and with a web of 8 accounts, he was making like 20, 30,000 miles a month on that. And he took his whole family to Israel first class.
Fantastic.
That was pretty sweet. So, so if you're interested in all this, before we go, we had this idea before we got on to do the first ever live podcast without much planning, Apporama plan. So what an Apporama is, I mentioned one time I got like 4 or 5 credit cards in a day. There's a trick with this travel hacking credit card stuff, if that's the route you want to go to get all the miles, which is what I've done and what Lee's done and many other people. We can't tell everybody in the world about it because then everyone's onto it and they'll shut it all down. So be judicious. I guess I'm sharing it on a podcast, so a few people will hear it. But I hope all the listeners really do value this and enjoy this and get some good value from it. So there's the way credit reporting works. The banks that you get credit cards from report to the big credit bureaus. There's 3 of them, usually once a day. At the end of the day, they do a big batch. So they'll say, these are all of the applications we had today, and that's considered a hard hit on your credit score, or credit report. So when you go on your credit report, other lenders will say, oh, they just applied for a loan from Chase. They don't know what it is, but if it's a credit card, it'll show, application from Chase. That's what they'll see. You can go on your own credit report and see that. All of your applications in the last 2 years, you'll see that. So if you do one a day, by the 3rd or 4th day, the banks will look at your credit report and say, oh, well, you've just applied for 3 credit cards in the last 3 days. Why did you do that? Why should we give you a credit card? That's a risky activity. So what people do is they apply for all of the credit cards in one day before it hits the system. Not that you're doing anything bad. This is legal. Some people might say it's gaming the system, but it's within the rules and confines of the system. So you're not breaking any laws or doing anything wrong. But if you apply for them all and get approved on the same day, they won't see all the other applications. And as long as you're not going to go try to get a new mortgage in the next 6 months to a year, it won't look funky. It won't hurt you in any way. It lowers your credit score a tiny bit, but not materially, having all these hits happen and all the new accounts. So I have been in the market for a new Apporama. I have not done one, and it's been a while. My mileage balances are running a little low after going to Spain, and I think I have 6 trips right now. I actually booked one today to Chicago. So my miles are running low. Lee, what would you do if you were me today? Even I haven't told you what credit cards I've already have or have had. How would you approach this today if you wanted to do a big Apporama and get tons of miles?
Well, the number one thing before you start is you want to know where you want to go. Like, what's your goal with the travel? And some people want luxurious travel. Some people want just the economy. They just want to be able to go to as many places as possible. So kind of knowing how you like to travel and where you want to go are 2 different questions that we really need to kind of understand. Personally, I do a lot of domestic travel. So Southwest is fantastic for me, especially because with a companion pass. But every so often I like to do a really nice international trip, and whenever possible, do it in business class. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. So, actually, my original plan for the Spain trip was to go business class, but we booked it a little too late, and all those seats were already taken, so we had to go coach. But let's say I wanted to do a Europe trip business class from Portland, where I live, where we don't have a big hub, which is really sad. We have an Alaska hub, it's pretty small.
Sure. So, whether you're from Portland or anywhere else, with American Airlines, they're probably one of my favorite airlines to use for international trips because they have really good availability for their, what they call it, the Mile Saver, which is their discounted award flights. So if you want to go to Europe, and I did this a few years ago with it was me, my son, my wife, and my mother-in-law. We went just at the tail end of the off-peak, so it was at the end of April. And the American Airlines off-peak is for Europe is from October 15th through May 15th. So it's a really big window for those off-peak awards. And essentially everything is half price. Like a normal one-way ticket is 40,000 miles. During the off-peak, it's only 20. Same thing with the business class. It's normally 100,000 miles. You can get it for 50,000 miles. And so 50,000 miles is definitely easily achievable through a number of the different credit cards from Citibank on the American Airlines side. And so that's one of the ways I would go to earn the miles is there's actually kind of a handful of cards also, which really helps if you're trying to build your mileage balance. To say you want to be able to take you and your spouse and maybe children or a mother-in-law, something like that. There's an American Express version from Citibank. There's a MasterCard version, and then there's the card we were talking about earlier, Eric, which is the Executive Platinum version. And so each one of those generally will offer about 50,000 miles. I'm not sure right now if they are running the promotion where you can get 50,000 miles. Sometimes they'll bump it down to 30,000. So you may want to look on the website to see if there are any offers for 50,000 miles on the app.
Yeah, so if you are a new travel hacker, so like Lee just said, sometimes they're lower, sometimes they're better. So there's a bunch of blogs all about travel hacking. So you can easily go out there and find what historically has been available and what's available today. And if you see a big difference negatively today from what has been, you might want to be patient, wait, because some of those deals come back. Sometimes they're annually or quarterly. Sometimes, if you jump on and the deal's really high, like there was just a deal, all of the Ink cards from Chase were doing 60,000 mile bonuses instead of the regular 50. It's a perfect time to jump on and try it. Mm-hmm. So
if you get one of the Citibank American Airlines, whether it's the MasterCard or Visa version, those generally will offer anywhere from 30 to 50,000 miles, and they'll waive the annual fee the first year. That's generally the offer that's available. The Executive Platinum one, which has a lot of really nice perks, that one has a really hefty fee of $450.
Yeah.
But the good thing is
that.
Well,
only 1 year.
The good thing is that you can actually do some things to offset that $450. Which what I did is I bought. I went online or even called, and I bought gift cards in the $50 increments from American Airlines, and then I call up and use that as a quote unquote bag fee, or a lot of times you don't have to tell me, just call them up and say, hey, I have a fee on my account from American Airlines. Would you mind waiving it? And because with that Executive Platinum card, you can actually get $250 per calendar year waived.
Yeah, and they call them statement credits.
Yes. So that's a way to offset that $450 on that card.
Great. Yeah. So there you guys have that's one strategy. Those American cards. That's awesome. We're running low on time. So before we go, one last question. If you had to only have one travel hacking credit card, and you had to get rid of all of your others, and you could only have one to keep forever, what would it be?
I'm a big fan of Southwest, so I would keep that one. The reason for it is because I save so much money on all the flights by having the companion pass. Like, for example, at the end of this month, we're going to Puerto Rico for a week. My wife is going to fly for free. We're going to Isla Mujeres, in Cancun, in a Labor Day weekend. So my wife will be able to fly for free. Later that month, I'm going to switch, and actually, my partner is going to be my companion, and we're going to fly to Boston on our way to Dublin and London. So that flight will be for free. And then I don't know, we're probably going to go to Aruba or any of the other kind of new international destinations the Southwest is offering. So after they bought AirTran, their international offerings went from non-existent to now you have probably 10 to 12 different places.
Yeah, you're going to Mexico, the Caribbean, and expanding. It's great.
Exactly. So that's the card I would keep. And that's the card I've actually had for probably 12 years. Wow. There's a lot of other value with a lot of other ones. But that's the one that's near and dear to my heart.
And my favorite, which was, I think, my second card I got for the purpose of miles, is the Sapphire Preferred from Chase. That one, you get double miles at restaurants, double miles on bars included in restaurants, which at the time I got this card was a lot of miles. My bar spend has gone way down, but there was a point it was a lot of miles. There's a lot of bonus opportunities there, and there's transfer partners. So what's cool with that, if you get 100,000 miles there, you can transfer instantly to Southwest, which I do sometimes. United. There's a whole list of airlines and hotels that you can use those miles for. So for me, that one's been kind of my favorite and longest I've had.
Nice.
It's worked great for me. So thank you so much for being on. This has been totally interesting. I've loved hearing all the real estate stuff. If people want to know more about you, they want to connect with you, they want to find you, where should they go?
I'm all over social media. I have the Facebook account, the Twitter account, Instagram, etc. Under baldthoughts.com. Baldthoughts.com is the website, and Bald Thoughts is the handle on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And for anybody that kind of has some questions as far as what cards to get or how to get places, things like that, I do offer a free consultation for people as far as helping them try to figure out which card to get that's going to help them achieve their travel goals. So there's a link on my website for that if somebody wants to reach out to me there.
Great. So if you missed that site when we mentioned earlier, that's baldthoughts.com. And Lee Huffman has been our guest. He's been totally interesting and fascinating. We could go and talk for hours and hours, but it's getting late, and we have to call it a night. So thank you again so much. This has been fun. Here's a virtual cheers through the internet webs of us clinking our beers. Thank you for speaking with everyone. Thank you, listeners, for making it this far. And if you have any questions for Lee, if you can't find that link or you're having trouble with the spellings, I will link to him from the show notes for this episode, so you'll be able to find him that way. And until we speak next time, stay profitable.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Profitability Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on iTunes or share it with a friend.